that time they almost destroyed the Powerpuff Girls. In August 2020, the network that brought us Gossip Girl, The Vampire Diaries, Reign, and Jane the Virgin announced their plans to create a live-action TV series based on the beloved children's cartoon, The Powerpuff Girls. Created by Craig McCracken, the original show introduced 3 superpowered kindergartners, Bubbles, Blossom, and Buttercup, who were accidentally created by their father, Professor Utonium, out of sugar, spice, everything nice, and Chemical X. The trio live in the city of Townsville, where they have to regularly save the day from an assortment of over-the-top villains, including Mojo Jojo, Him, Sedusa, and Fuzzy Lumpkins. The Powerpuff Girls aired on Cartoon Network from 1998 to 2005, effectively raising an entire generation of children, and it was popular enough to garner an anime adaptation in 2006 and a full-fledged reboot in 2016. Considering I still can't see the combination of blue, pink, and green without immediately being reminded of the Powerpuff Girls, I can understand why there was a growing interest in creating a show that would capitalize on this sense of nostalgia. But it's almost impressive how badly they screwed it up. When the CW first announced the Powerpuff series, they explained that it would be a more realistic take on the Powerpuff Girls story, saying it would follow the now 25-year-old crime fighters as they come to terms with their traumatic childhoods. I was immediately concerned, as this initial premise seemed to be pulled straight from the angsty playbooks of Riverdale and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which isn't that far a reach considering Powerpuff's executive producer, Greg Berlanti, was also involved with those productions. In 2021, the project began to pick up steam and several members of the main cast were confirmed. Dove Cameron, who'd starred in Disney's Descendants and Liv and Maddie, was cast as Bubbles. Chloe Bennett from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was cast as Blossom, and relative newcomer Yana Perot was cast as Buttercup. Cameron and Bennett had briefly worked together on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and this familiarity likely aided their early chemistry tests. Meanwhile, Perot had previously starred in the Broadway production of Jagged Little Pill, which was written by Diablo Cody. Donald Faison, known for his work on Scrubs and Clueless, was cast as Drake Utonium, while the role of Cerebellum went to Robin Lively, who you might recognize from Teen Witch or for being half-sisters with Serena Vanderwoodson and married to Troy Bolton's dad. Side note, what did they do to her? Miss Bellum used to be such a baddie. Now she's a mom in an Old Navy commercial. Nicholas Badani was cast as Joseph Mondle Jr., aka Jojo, the son of the Powerpuff Girls' arch-nemesis, Mojo Jojo. This character was created specifically for the show, and I remember thinking, oh god, they're gonna make him someone's love interest, which still sends shivers down my spine. In April, production of the pilot episode began in Atlanta, Georgia, and leaked photos from the set seemed to prove all of my worst fears. Now, you obviously can't judge the final product based off of a few photos taken from across the street in a bush, but the girls' outfits were such a lackluster interpretation of their original looks that I couldn't help but be reminded of a bad comedy sketch. I'm not saying they needed to go the sexy route like Kendall Jenner and Hailey Bieber, but they could have at least risen to the level of the Riverdale cast. Instead, all we got were color-coded potato sacks wrapped with electrical tape. The only glimmer of hope that I had was the script, which was being co-written by Diablo Cody. Best known for Juno, Jennifer's Body, Young Adult, and most recently, Lisa Frankenstein, Cody's writing style is quick-paced and quirky, with a good deal of dry humor and contemporary slang. It works for some people and doesn't for others. I fall into the first camp. What made me especially excited about Cody's involvement on the Powerpuff project was that she was particularly adept at writing female characters, giving them a depth that prevented them from falling into Manic Pixie Dream Girl territory that would have tempted other writers. My hopes were dashed in May 2021 when the pilot script was leaked onto the internet. Now, admittedly, a lot of Cody's work can read as cringy before making the transition to the big screen, but Powerpuff seemed woefully out of touch. Several weeks later, the CW announced that Powerpuff was no longer slated for the 2021-2022 season, expressing that they were dissatisfied with the original pilot for being too campy and not rooted in reality. With the teaser for said pilot recently being leaked, I have to disagree and say it wasn't campy enough, but we'll circle back to that. In August, Chloe Bennett left the project due to scheduling issues, and the CW announced their intentions to recast the role and start on rewrites and reshoots. Up until May 2022, more than a year after they'd filmed the original pilot, the CW was still saying that they were working on bringing the show to life, but after another year with no updates, they finally confirmed that Powerpuff was cancelled. Aside from the shoddy pilot, which again, I'll get back to, I have a few theories as to why the show was scrapped. First of all, while these sort of gritty remakes of beloved children's IP had worked in the past, by 2023 the concept was played out, and with the incredibly negative reaction to Fate the Winx saga, the CW might have felt that Powerpuff was a risk they weren't willing to take. Another factor might have been the state of the CW itself, with many of their shows released in the 2020s failing to strike a chord with audiences and being cancelled after a single season. It's kind of hard to justify an expensive, CGI-heavy TV series when you're already bleeding money elsewhere. The CW doesn't exactly have the best reputation, with most writing it off as the sexy teen drama channel, and with their countless spin-offs and reboots that rehash the same melodramatic plotlines, you know Powerpuff had to be really bad if even they weren't comfortable releasing it. And after watching the teaser, I think they made the right decision. Consisting of clips entirely from the unaired pilot, the teaser follows most of the beats from the leaked script, so I'll fill in the blanks if I need to. The teaser shows how Professor Utonium capitalized off of the girls' superpowers when they were children, turning them into a toy line and carefully curating their image, something they come to resent him for as adults. Although initially adored, public opinion shifts in their teens after they accidentally kill Mojo Jojo during a battle, prompting all three to leave home. Blossom becomes a classic overachiever with dozens of degrees, Bubbles is a party girl who's trying to relive her glory days, while Buttercup is attempting to make a real difference in the world. They return home on their 25th birthday to finally get access to their trust funds, which unbeknownst to them, the professor has drained, and he warns them that trouble is coming back to Townsville. Mojo Jojo's son is now mayor, and he swears revenge on the Powerpuff Girls, although he and Blossom find themselves drawn to one another, which is made more complicated by the fact that she's in a relationship and killed his father. He teams up with Henrietta to get the people of Townsville to turn on each other, but the Powerpuff Girls are able to save the day in the nick of time. With their strained relationship fixed, they decide to stay in Townsville, not realizing that it was all a ploy by their father, who plans to create more monsters for them to fight. Whether it's the visual effects, or the acting, or the general storyline, the whole thing is a mess, which is disappointing because I think there was hidden potential. Now, even though the Powerpuff Girls creator said that it'd be a completely different show if the girls are adults, I think there is a way to tell that story while still being true to the original series. One of the things that made the Powerpuff Girls show so much fun to watch is that even though they were indestructible superheroes, something that isn't at all relatable, they were also normal kids, meaning they went on sleepovers, were forced to eat their veggies, and lost their baby teeth. To call back to that, it could have been interesting to see them as adults having to hide their powers from the world, with each episode featuring a normal struggle alongside an abnormal battle. Like, just imagine Blossom has to meet her boyfriend's parents for the first time, but simultaneously a giant monster is wreaking havoc on the city. Yes, it's a little bit Superman-y, but I never get sick of that. And there's a reason we all loved Totally Spies and Kim Possible and Hannah Montana. Now, I can't really make any judgments on the casting based on the teaser alone, but I will say that the race swapping doesn't bother me, which is definitely not a popular opinion in the Powerpuff Girls fandom. But as I've said countless times before, if a character's ethnicity doesn't directly impact the story, then it doesn't matter. And in the case of this show, the important thing is that Professor Utonium is a scientist and that the Powerpuff Girls have superpowers. Although I will admit that them making the character known for being sassy, black, and queer is a little tone deaf. The biggest character change is probably the JoJo family being humans instead of chimpanzees. And although I understand that it was probably for logistical reasons, I don't love it, since Mojo Jojo's animosity towards the Powerpuff Girls is literally because he used to be the professor's pet before they were created. But based on the teaser, I think they wind up turning him into a normal lab assistant who becomes jealous of the professor's success. Like I mentioned before, I think the show didn't lean into the camp enough, which is especially obvious through the delivery of Diablo Cody's dialogue and the overall production design. If you're gonna be goofy, be goofy. That's why the Kindercamp genre of the past, which we have a video all about, is so fondly remembered. After all, what's the point in rooting the story in reality when at its core, it's completely unrealistic? Give me the color-coded outfits of Scooby-Doo, the satirical comedy of Josie and the Pussycats, and the wacky effects of Spy Kids. Before anyone says that those types of films are a product of a bygone era, there have been a few recent movies, like Barbie, Jumanji, and Paddington, that prove it can still be done. Sure, the show would have to be more action-driven, but if Birds of Prey, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Bullet Train can have their characters kick butt without sacrificing color and fun, why can't Powerpuff? All in all, I'm relieved Powerpuff got cancelled, since it just wasn't a good idea from the start. But what do you think? I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!